we're back with round 2, and this time we're going to be talking about physical literacy, but before that, how's your project been going?
The project's going really good.
You just launched merch, I think.
I did,
Yeah.
yes. Launched just last night, actually. So moving into phase 2 of the project. The shooting is all done.
Yeah.
The stories have all been recorded. They haven't all been published yet, but moving into the next part, which is to raise funds and raise awareness and working towards a book launch next year.
So you're going to become now moving from a photographer to a merchandiser, designing shirts.
A little bit of everything, pulling it all together. I'm self-publishing, so I have to wear many hats right now. And what I'm doing right now is getting these t-shirts out here that say supermodel with the super crossed out and then roll above it, and raise a few bucks to help offset the high cost of printing.
Cool. And is it still the same site, or do you now have a different site because you have...
It's all the same.
Okay.
It's all one place, my Facebook page, a little bit on Instagram, but mainly on my Facebook page.
Perfect. So one thing I want to start with is, so there's the definition of physical literacy. There's many, many, many different definitions. This is from the Sport for Life website. And it's very simple, and it just says the motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility for engagement in physical activities for life. And really the way that I look at literacy, and I talked about this with my friend Jen. I did a physical literacy video. I just posted it, but we filmed it like 1.5 years ago. So when we posted it, people were like, "Oh, I really like your haircut." And she's like, "Yeah, it's from 1.5 years ago." So this video will go up a lot sooner than that.
Okay.
But she's all about physical literacy. She wrote a book about physical literacy in the library.
Yeah.
She does a lot of yoga, running. She doesn't really do dance, but she's a big proponent of dance, just moving your body.
Yes.
Whereas I'm on the Frisbee side, you have kids, you've worked with athletes, so we view it as whole person literacy.
Right.
So physical literacy is important, so is emotional literacy, textual literacy, digital literacy, you could say nutritional literacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many different kinds of literacy, and it's not that one is more valuable than others. I think they all kind of are part of that whole person literacy.
Absolutely, and I think, speaking as a parent, it's important to me to raise well-rounded children, and to be exposed to all these different types of literacy is important because we're training them to be adults. So we want them to be responsible, well-rounded individuals, and it starts from a very young age.
For sure, and like my interest in this is when I speak in schools and I say to principals, I talk about physical literacy. I'm not going to go up to kids and say, "Okay, physical literacy, why does it matter?" Because they're 8 years old, they don't care.
That's right.
But it's like, should I play hockey all year? Should I play soccer all year? And my main thing when I started is I didn't actually start playing Frisbee until after high school. And here I am.
Right.
You don't have to start something when you're 6 years old.
No, you don't.
And so a lot of these kids are realizing, like, why am I doing one thing all the time? Or if I quit doing something, I can go on to something else. Like baseball was my thing.
Absolutely.
I got cut from the baseball team in grade. It was young. It was probably like grade 5. And I never played baseball again.
Right.
Because it was that one experience of getting cut. I love baseball, and now someone's saying you're not good enough to be on this team.
Absolutely.
Which is fair, and whatever. I went and did other things, but your son just got cut from...
Yep.
Yeah.
He didn't make his school soccer team this year, and he plays at a high level outside of school. So it was eye-opening moment for us. We had to work through that. He was devastated, obviously. He's in grade 7, and that is the age where I feel like it is appropriate to start trying out for sports teams. Before that, one can argue that, kids just aren't mature enough to deal with the emotional side of not making a team. Kids just like to have fun. They like to move. That's what we're supposed to let them do. And I feel as parents, this generation is maybe not getting the same opportunities we had to play. And to train our bodies from an early age just to move and figure out what's fun for us. And then when they're older, we can move them into an organized sport.
Yeah. And it's tough because some of these sports are early specialization.
Yeah.
I was involved with a program in Calgary called Sport Hub, and the idea came from he was an Irish soccer coach or something, and his goal was, if we're going to introduce a sport, we need to provide an opportunity for them to actually develop skills in that sport, and then involve the community. And so with the Sport Hub, it was 3 parts. So it was teach in schools, have an after-school program, and then have a community program. So they brought me to do Frisbee. We taught 800 kids Frisbee. 40 kids came out to Ultimate Frisbee. And so I said to them, like, if we would have done Ultimate, you would have had 800 kids learn Ultimate, 40 would have come out, maybe less, maybe more. Wouldn't have been probably less actually,
Right.
because we made Frisbee fun. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we have 30 kids playing Ultimate, great.
Yeah.
But what about those 770 kids? Now all they think when they think Frisbee is it's a team sport.
Yeah.
So physical literacy, part of it is showing kids what's possible.
Absolutely.
So if you can skate, you don't have to do figure skating. You can just go skate.
Absolutely.
Just movement. And so I think a lot of times we're teaching kids, here's a sport, but the movements, and like there's some physical literacy people that they're doing things that are not realistic. Like they're getting kids to just play all these silly games, but me and my friend at 12 are not going to go out in the field and play those silly games.
No.
It's like, yes, it's movement, but show how movement can be fun.
Exactly. And I think, as a parent or as a coach, our job is to keep an eye on that and guide them in the right direction. And it's being able to present them with the right opportunities that they're ready for at the time and where their interests lie. And I think what is happening to a lot of parents these days is we're falling into the trap of what our friends are doing and what all the other kids at school are doing. And if all the boys, for example, are playing hockey, we automatically just kind of go with the flow when we're not.
If they're hiring a personal trainer, I should probably hire a personal trainer for my son as well.
Right.
As well,
It's that whole fear of missing out thing. And that's real. That's, across all, that's not just a sports thing either. So it takes a lot of strength as an adult or as a coach or a facilitator to be able to guide children in the right direction, recognize their strengths and their wants. And if it's team sport versus an individual sport, or maybe it's recreational versus competitive sports, we need to let the kids tell us and feel comfortable telling us what they're interested in without fear of any repercussions.
And with hockey, like when I was in high school, I did soccer, hockey, rugby, track and field. We weren't actually allowed to do more than one sport a season. And our sports didn't go more than one season, which I really loved.
Right.
And it wasn't so much what I wanted to do, but it was like, this is how the structure is set up.
Right.
And I remember we had some hockey practices and we were still finishing soccer. So the coaches just had to make sure, okay, Rob's going to be, soccer's the main priority right now because we're finishing the season.
Absolutely.
And yes, learning to skate matters. Yes, stick handling matters. But playing soccer will help you in other ways as well and build different skills. So like one thing I do with Frisbee, I do a game that mimics fencing. And so you're learning to do the fencing movements in a different way. Right. Because I remember, I don't know your experience with sports, but when I was younger, how did we practice hockey? We stood against the boards. Everyone had a puck. We just shot pucks against the boards. It was super boring. But really, what is boring, right? Is that hard? Is that easy? And I've worked with so many kids now, and I'll see kids get bored all the time. So usually boredom, in my mind, what I see is if it's too easy, then they just do something else. If it's too hard, they just give up. And I've only seen really one kid make something that was easy harder and make something that was hard a challenge for himself. And that's really, how do we teach that to kids and saying, if this is hard, keep practicing it. If it's easy, how can you make it a little more difficult?
Absolutely. It's confidence, it's empowerment, and that's our job as the adults, is to help guide them in the right directions.
And even if a kid gets into the NHL, and so much of this is, every time we say NHL, we're only talking about boys. That's part of it too, right? Is like, and we've talked about this before, but even if they become a pro athlete, they're only going to last 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the goals is to develop a lifelong love of sport in our children. We all know that physical activity is critical to everyone's health. And my opinion is how you do that is to expose them to a variety of sports at an early age and let them develop a love for it without pushing them too hard in one direction. Once they stop having fun, that's when they quit, like we talked about earlier. And the last thing we want them to do is quit. And it starts, like I said, from a very early age, and to expose them to a variety, even obscure sports. They don't have to be the big, hockey, baseball, soccer. It can be archery, curling, bowling. There's so many opportunities for other sports out there, and guiding them in the right direction and developing that lifelong love of sport, it should be the goal.
But such a big part of that is, how do they get to archery? Right? Parents have to drive them.
Exactly.
So, and it's sometimes if kids are like, I don't want to do it, 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, parents are like, okay.
Yeah.
Because the parents get a break too.
We're
right?
exhausted
So
too. We're super busy. We have our own lives. And so it's a real balancing act of what's the right thing to do versus what's convenient to do versus what's feasible economically as well, financially.
'Cause some sports, like if you want to play competitively, it's going to cost a lot of money, and you have to say to your kids, is this something like if we invest in this, we may not be able to go for movies or go to eat or something. Like, what would you rather?
Exactly. So I do understand from that perspective how easy it is to become focused on one sport because it's easy to do a lot of the times, especially, you live right next to the rink. It's convenient. You're taking anything that we can do at the rink, right? So
or if it's a sport that you love and right?
Absolutely.
If your kid's like, I want to go to gymnastics, and you've never done gymnastics, you're like,
we often take the path of least resistance. What's familiar to us, what's easy for us, we pass on to our children. So I, for one, try to make an effort to expose them to a variety of things and let them know what's available to them within reason. I mean, we can't be everywhere at once. And a lot of the sports do overlap because they're going year round now. And it's really, really difficult, especially when their friends are doing hockey all summer. It's very hard to say no to that. But it's from a health perspective, we really have to pay attention to that because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, injury rates in young children are skyrocketing. Kids are blowing out their knees at 10 years old. It's because they've been specializing in overtraining. They're not cross-training. So it's important from a physiological point of view that kids are exposed to a variety of movements just to keep their bodies healthy. And I
think part of that is, kids see their friends training. They're not thinking from that physical literacy. There's like, my friends are doing that. I want to be with my friends. If you say no in their mind, they're like, why are you taking me away from my friends?
Exactly.
And you're not, but it's like, if we take away video games from a kid, they see that as the same thing. They see that as, but that's where my friends are. I want to go spend time with my friends. Why are you taking me away from my friends? They don't see the bigger picture. And
that's right.
And I think as an adult, I'm not a parent, but as an adult, that's something I'm trying to guide and coach kids and parents and teachers on and say, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say no. I've had parents tell me, you can take the phone away. You're paying for it. You can do that.
Yeah, I know. It's hard, and we all struggle. We all struggle with it. We're all doing the best we can. But there's a lot of great information out there with the science behind what we're talking about. So you can't argue with that, with the benefits of.
And how much value is there in connecting with your friends' parents, or your kids' friends' parents, and saying to them like, should we have them playing hockey all summer? Maybe we can get them golfing, or maybe we can do something else with them. So they're still moving their bodies, they're still spending time together.
Absolutely, and I think it comes back to also sports end up being our social life as well. And as humans, we're designed to live in communities and societies and be social. And when your kids are going to sports all the time, they become your tribe as well, right? So the parents do talk behind the scenes, and like we talk about camps in the summertime and what are we going to do? It's not like, what am I going to do? It's what are we going to do as a community? And so there is opportunities to make changes here because it's a birds of a feather thing, right? We move as a group, and that's just human nature. So all it takes is one person to come up with the idea, instead of this, let's do this instead. And oftentimes you'll see the group shift, and then you'll see the kids shift as well. So it really is up to us.
I think too often, and I think being involved, sometimes we have a skewed perspective because we think that's all everybody ever hears, everybody talks about, but most people are like, what's physical literacy? But I think we have to get it down to that granular point of, it's not on a big picture, but it's in your community, what can you do? Because it sounds good in theory, but you're right. What happens then if you go to new sport, you don't get along with the parents. You're like, I don't really want to be here. This is a good time. And your kid's like, I don't really want to do this. It's like, all right, let's go do something else.
There's a lot of factors that go into our decision making, and it's a huge issue. It's a huge. The big picture has many layers to it, and so there's a lot of reasons we make the decisions we make. But I think we all have our children's best interest in mind, and even as coaches and educators, we all want the best for them. And I think if we move sort of as a group, we can kind of shift things a little bit. So
just get them playing, moving, creating opportunities. I did a program, the physical literacy instructor program, and High Five. You had to take this course on fundamentals of healthy child development. And the two big things were a caring adult and a friend. So if a kid has a friend that wants to do something, Quidditch, for example, right? It's very obscure. And they're like, okay, cool, let's do Quidditch.
Yeah.
but they can't find an adult to run it or to coach it.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
Yeah.
So if they can find an adult, or if the adult says, hey, let's do a Quidditch club, and then gets a bunch of kids together. Like the big thing now I've been doing the last week and a half, saying to kids, hey, if you like Frisbee, start a Frisbee club at your school.
Yeah.
That's something I've never really said to them, but I'm like, that's what I want to have happen. And so the school yesterday, they're like, yeah, like all these kids want to start a Frisbee club. And then a teacher was like, you know, I will help facilitate it. That's all I need. So
that's one sport, low cost. You can play it anywhere, but you're right. You need that someone to initiate things, to take control, and to guide everybody. And I think we underestimate the importance of our coaches. They're volunteers. They're giving up their time because they love it. They take a lot of abuse. And I think we should be fostering our coaches and supporting our coaches more than we do.
Yeah, and Frisbee is not the best sport. There's no best sport. You've just worked with athletes from 40 sports. You've seen people who are as passionate as possible in every single sport. So to say that this sport is better than that, I think is wrong. And too often I think we're like, well, this is why this is better. No, this is why this is a good sport. If you like these qualities, go play that sport. And I also think it's fair to say, like, this is why hockey might be dangerous because of this CTE that's happening, because of concussions, because of so it's good to identify those and say, here are the pros and cons. What risks are you willing to take if you enroll your kid in this sport?
Absolutely.
Here's the cost of it too, like hockey, you know, rink time, ice time, equipment. And if you're willing to go through that, okay. But it's just good to know, you know, if you're going to go to archery, probably no concussions in archery. Right,
no,
so
I don't. If you get hit in the head, you're dead. There's no concussion. It's just straight death.
Quidditch actually has a lot of concussions.
Really?
Yeah. Cheerleading, super high injury. Bunch of girls throwing each other trying to catch them.
It's incredibly dangerous. It's incredibly athletic. I have so much respect for the cheer athletes. It's a really hard sport. And I think, you know, like we said, it keeps coming back to knowing your child's personality and presenting them with options that make sense to them. If your child doesn't like team sports, here's some individual sports that we have access to that we think you'd like. It's all about fostering that lifelong
Just
love.
build that curiosity of movement. Really.
Absolutely, and letting them know that it's okay. If you don't like it, tell me. We'll fix it. We won't take you back. If you love it, tell me, and we can push you a little bit. There's healthy ways of doing that, but to empower your child to be able to have those discussions with you, maybe not with you, but with their coach or with their teacher, someone, an adult that they trust. That's how we reach them, and that's how we build great athletes. It's at the grassroots level. I find
it really is like we have these, you know, these kind of discussions with adults. With the kids, we wouldn't have these kind of discussions. They're like, just go play and encourage them and keep showing them, and then they're like, oh, we get it. Yes,
totally.
I love this, right?
And I think people discount the advantage that being a multi-sport athlete gives you in your favorite sport. I mean, at some point, everybody tends to kind of lean towards their favorite sport. That hopefully comes sort of in the teenage years. But I find that, so my oldest son plays soccer and hockey, and when I see the way he uses his feet on the ice, that's a soccer skill. He would never do that if he was just a hockey player. And I see it on the soccer field too, the way he moves his body to protect himself. And that's a skill he's learned from hockey. So these sports are benefiting their other sports. So I think it's really, we underestimate.
Well, in seeing the field in soccer, you can take that, you know, vision on the ice as well, and say, okay, I can see things on a bigger picture now.
Absolutely.
Just in different ways, switching back and forth.
Absolutely. And if hockey is your main sport, you know, try tennis or golf in the summertime to work on your hand-eye coordination. And there's just so many benefits. So many benefits.
You can build that community the rest of your life. You can be 75 years old with your 75-year-old best friend. Doing whatever.
Because it's a social thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, physical literacy matters, but all types of literacy matter. But great to have you here for round 2, round 3.
Thank you. Anytime.
I don't know what we'll talk about in round 3, but
we'll figure it out.
And you'll probably be wearing your merchandise in round 3.
I hope so. I'll bring one for you too.
That's awesome. So when is the book coming out?
I'm anticipating next summer 2020. Pre-orders spring 2020.
Perfect. Awesome. And we'll be sharing that for sure when it comes out. So
Thank you.
Awesome.